Hello, everyone. I hope that you all had a wonderful weekend. I wanted to touch base very quickly about our next learning module where we will explore the characteristics of gifted and talented learners. So, one thing that you hopefully recognized through your assignments so far is that giftedness is really misunderstood. Oftentimes, we assume that gifted students are like the best kids, they're well behaved, they're super smart, and they're easiest to teach. That is as far from the truth as possible. Actually, our gifted students are some of our most challenging students, but that's usually because we're not providing them with the correct environment that really challenges them to learn and grow to their full potential. So now that we have discovered through Learning Module 1 some various definitions of giftedness, how we may identify giftedness, remember that's different for each state. Um, I want us to take this myths and realities content a little bit further by looking at the unique characteristics of our gifted learners. Now, what this module is all about is how we as teachers could recognize our students by their gifts and their talents in the way that those may manifest in unique manners in the classroom. For example, one of the most common characteristics of gifted learners is curiosity. They are super curious and they ask a lot of questions and often really challenging questions that make it difficult for us as the educator. But let's think about how we can see that curiosity in the classroom. Usually we see that as the kid sitting in the front of the room, leaning forward and hanging on your every word and asking a bunch of questions, where really the same curiosity could be shown if the student is in the back of the room, maybe reading underneath the desk and completely ignoring what you are saying. So curiosity can definitely manifest in a positive manner, but it can also quite easily manifest in more of a negative manner because the child is not curious about what you want them to be curious about doesn't mean that they're not displaying that curiosity. Another really common indicator of giftedness is creativity. And oftentimes we think, oh, I really want a lot of creativity in my students. I definitely want to promote that. But also, creativity can manifest in ways to get around the rules, ways to distract your classroom, and not necessarily a creative problem solver. What I really want you to focus on this week is not only the characteristics of gifted students, but also what we call the concomitant displays of those different characteristics. So there's both a positive and a less positive way that we can see creativity or high academic performance or that curiosity in the classroom. So as you are exploring the content, I do want to give you one disclaimer. Next week, we will be doing an assignment where you are choosing a student, either that you are currently working with, maybe your own child, maybe a student that you're nannying for, any kid that you feel like you know them pretty well. And you are conducting an assignment to look at potential characteristics of giftedness that they display both in and outside of the classroom. We will revisit this type of checklist for gifted characteristics later in our class when we look at the invisible gifted, because the current checklist that you're given in this learning module is not my favorite. It's a little bit biased toward just the positive ways that we see giftedness. But I purposely give you this one first, and then as we go further in the class, we'll look at what's called the TABS, or the Traits, Aptitudes, and Behaviors checklist. And that is made to help educators recognize both the positive and negative characteristics of giftedness. So, all about this week is your discussion board post. The first thing I want you to do is read through the case study before you even look into the learning module library content. So read your case study. This again is a true story, and it's actually one of my favorites. So this case study is about a child named Adam. And Adam is a young child who is doing a very common activity for Thanksgiving where he draws a turkey out of his hand. And you'll read that Adam is very precise about how he wants to complete this assignment, oftentimes somewhat frustrating the teacher because he's not quite done. He chooses a different way to do this assignment that actually causes the teacher to call in the parents for a parent-teacher conference. Your challenge in this discussion board post is to analyze how Adam's behavior could actually be indicative of giftedness instead of a quote problem child that the teacher is kind of painting him to be. So please read the case study first and read the discussion board prompt. Keep that in mind, and then explore all of these different library materials that focus on the characteristics and the traits of gifted students. The purpose of this module, again, is for you to start thinking, what would these students look like in the classroom? What would they be doing? How would they be acting? What questions would they be asking that could indicate that they have these special gifts and talents that would need those gifted education services? So I'm looking for your initial discussion board post on Friday and then your responses by Sunday evening. Again, make sure that you review the discussion board post rubric. I did write pretty specific feedback on your previous discussion board posts. Most importantly, I need you to be citing your materials. Make sure that you're synthesizing everything and really demonstrating that you've interacted with all of this library content. As this is not a face-to-face class, your discussion board posts are your primary way to communicate your understanding to me. Again, I am so excited to have you all in the class and look forward to hearing from you soon. If you are here on campus, please do not hesitate to knock on my door and talk face to face. I would also be willing to schedule any kind of video conference or telephone call in my office hours. Let me know if you have any questions, and otherwise, have a wonderful week.